Ah, come on. There we are. Alright. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host for today's broadcast, Insanely at 13, as we are preparing to get underway here for the last race for the GT3 Pro Championship here for the X League. It's going to be a small field today, and with only 2 Chevrolets showing up, and they're 2 of the slower Chevrolet drivers versus 3 Fords showing up, and they are by far and away, for the 4th week in a row, way faster than the rest of the field. The Fords pretty much by default have won the Manufacturers' Championship. There's not really any kind of drama to watch today. It's really just going to be a question of, are the Ford drivers going to fight amongst themselves for the race win to wrap up the season? They are, unless something absolutely bonkers happens, they are all but guaranteed to win tonight, and they will have 8 wins over a 12-race season. So, while it was a little bit closer early on in the year, the last 4 races, the Fords have just been absolutely destroying everything else. There's been really not a lot of outright parity showing up there. So the question is going to be, are the Ford drivers actually going to fight amongst each other for the race win? It is car rebuilds in the 6, Manuel Pedro in the 55, and Les Relga in the 67, starting in the top 3. Matthews is the only Ferrari representative today. He's going to be starting in the 4th position. Then you'll have Breezy Rain and Tempered Ship, your 2 Chevrolet representatives in the number 17 and 21 machine. After that will be Rebirth Quint in the Lone Dodge, and Asian Diesel in the Lone Aston Martin entry. You'll see the field filter on down into the backstretch chicane here. Nope. And that is XR Monaco going by there, doing some safety car things. We also have Weiser, who pulled off a podium result in last night's Porsche Cup race. He is also doing safety car. Not sure why we need to have 2 different safety cars for tonight's event, but that does seem to be the case that we are in right now. Again, it's going to be a relatively small field, only 8 drivers. The big question, how aggressively are the Ford drivers going to fight amongst themselves tonight for the event? Again, in the standings, the championship has basically been locked up. 2nd place has basically been locked up. Manuel Pedro just went way off circuit there. 2nd place has been locked up. 3rd place has been locked up. Breezy Rain, who is 4th, he is 15 points out from Indy El Shadow in the championship, so Breezy Rain might be able to leapfrog Indy El Shadow if he gets a little bit fortunate here. If that ends up being the case, that would be significant for him. Real quickly, he would need to earn 15 points, so if he can finish 9th, he'll earn that, but we only have 8 drivers, so Breezy Rain, pretty much by default, by starting this race, should walk out of this season 3rd in the championship. And we'll get a small payout from that, as the field doubles up as they come out of the final corner, and we prepare to take the green flag here at Yas Marina. We are underway, and immediately we're looking at Matthews looking at the outside as they come down to turn 1. And here they are, 3 wide nearly for the Fords, but it will be the 6 who leads. The 55 pulls up around the outside, a little bit of contact between them. The Ferrari is sliding out of control, barely able to keep it on track. No problems for the Fords to keep it 1, 2, 3 as they go through turns 1, 2, 3, and 4 now. Pedro slides just a little bit there. Now under threat from Les Railgun. Railgun, your season champion, muscling his way alongside Manuel Pedro. Car rebuilds trying to open the gap up ahead of them. So we saw a little bit of controversy and accidents from the Ford camp at Watkins Glen. What should have been an easy 1, 2, 3 finish fell down to just being a 1, 2 finish there. But Railgun and Pedro, if they can get their fighting resolved nice and early, they won't have to worry about that being an issue again. Tempered Ship and Cars Matthew having a bit of a fight there for 4th spot right now. Down the back straightaway this time by. The 2nd back straightaway into this heavy braking zone. And now Railgun putting Rebuilt under pressure here. A little bit of contact, and you see Rebuilt gets the rear of the car outside, was just a bit squirrely through there. This section here is where the Ford GT really stands out. A very downforce and handling focused part of the circuit, and that is where the Ford GT really shines. Coming out of the hotel section. Ooh, wow, Manuel Pedro just licks the outside wall. So does Tempered Chip there, just licks it with that right rear quarter panel. And now they come down to the final corner, and they have completed their first racing lap. Already, the gap of about 2 seconds between the leader and the highest non-Ford GT right now. Railgun pulls up right behind Car Rebuilds. Looks to the inside, but he's not really close enough to do anything with it right now. He'll elect to just stay in line behind as they come out of that not quite hairpin, and now down the first of the two back straightaways again. So maximum draft in favor of Les Railgun this time by. Pedro hanging on in third position. But while Pedro had a respectable qualifying run, doesn't seem to have quite the outright pace that Rebuilds and Railgun has at the moment. Through the chicane between the two back straightaways. Not a great run through by either Rebuilds or Railgun, but Railgun is now under threat from Pedro. Matthews has already pulled away from the Chevrolet of Tempered Chip. Breezy Rain has moved to 6. Agent Diesel has gotten ahead of Rebirth Quint farther back there. Now it looks like Agent Diesel's trying to fight his way by Breezy Rain as well. Side by side, Aston Martin and Chevrolet. Oh, the dodge of Rebirth Quint hits the inside wall back there. These two are still going at it, and the Aston forces the Chevy a little bit wide through there. Under the hotel. And they get going once more now. Ooh, again. Rebirth Quint licks the inside wall, but that's it. That's all. Not enough to really cause any catastrophic issues to him. Meanwhile, our top three continue to pull away. On the start of our third racing lap, they have already pulled 2.5 seconds on Cars Matthews, our highest Ferrari entrant today. So our Ford GT drivers seem to be spreading out just a little bit now. They've kind of figured out how to stop fighting amongst themselves for the moment. So real quickly, let's look at the tire choices of everyone in the field. Car Rebuilds, he is at 17% on his tires right now. Les Railgun, your season champion, he is at 15%. So he's a little bit better on tires than Manuel Pedro here in third. He is at 18% on tires. So Pedro seems to be a little bit slower and dealing with a lot more issue when it comes to tire life right now. So there may be a chance that we'll see Les Railgun run Car Rebuilds down in the closing moments here. But right now, well, in the closing moments not of the race itself necessarily, but of the closing moments in the stint. But for right now, most of the battling has already resolved. There are pretty large gaps throughout the entire field, considering that we're not even a full handful of laps into this race yet. From the pace car's perspective, as you can see, the field firing it off through the final corners right now. Reminder, Car Matthews reigning in 4th position. He's at 22% tire wear already. He is doing a good enough job keeping up with the Fords. They've not absolutely left him in the dust like they have the rest of the field. But Cars Matthews obviously does not have the pace to actually take the fight to that championship team right now. Railgun is now completely fallen out of Car Rebuild's draft at the moment, but he is still in the position where you can be pressured by Manuel Pedro here. A little bit later, we'll take a look at time penalties once everyone has, well, actually, honestly, everyone's kind of sorted themselves out now. Let's go ahead and look at the time penalties now. Manuel Pedro, 7/10 of a second. Cars Matthews, 1.3 seconds. Tempered Chip, 7/10. No one else has time penalties, though. So the two Chevrolet, oh, Les Railguns now earned a half-second penalty at this stage, and Weaver Quinn also is at 9/10. But the Chevys have now caught each other on the circuit. Breezy Rain runs right behind Tempered Chip at the moment. Again, Breezy Rain doesn't have to do anything crazy as long as he's already started this race. And by virtue of starting this race, he's guaranteed at least an 8th place finish. With Indy El Shadow having not shown up for tonight's event, Indy El Shadow will not take home any points. Breezy Rain is taking more than the minimum points needed to pass Indy El Shadow for third in the championship. So Breezy Rain will come home third in Drivers' Championship at the end of the season. There will actually be 2 Chevy drivers coming home in the top 3 in points at the end of the year at that. Railgun and Manuel Pedro on top of each other. Looks like Car Rebuilds may have backed off just a little bit in pace here. That gap he was opening up is gone. He's at 29% tires right now. We'll look at Les Railgun in second, though. He is at 29% as well. And then Manuel Pedro is at 30%. See Agent Diesel hanging out back there, but he doesn't seem to be close enough to do anything to the Chevys. It does feel that this race, more than any of the others we've seen, is very heavily dictated by what car you're in, more than what you can do here. It does look like most of the field is running on relatively similar tire strats, I believe. I think everyone has elected to start this race on the soft tire, actually, by the looks of it. Yeah, everyone elected to start on the soft tires for their first stint, so we're likely going to see the entire field pitting at about the same time, around lap 8 or 9. Reminder, we have seen in some, not all, but some of the races, the GT3 cars can go about a lap longer on their tires than what the Porsche Cup cars can. So last night, the Porsche Cup drivers, they could go 8 laps on a set of tires, 8 racing laps on a set of tires. If you were to mimic that today, we'd be seeing these drivers pitting at the end of lap 9. No, 8 racing laps plus the 1 pace lap. If you wanted to make it a 5-stop affair and go all softs all the way through, you pit on lap 9, pit on lap 17, pit on lap 25, and then pit on lap 33. Then again, on lap 41, you'd be good with a little bit of extra tire life at the end that you could, shift the numbers with. But the winning strategy last night had been medium tires on a 4-stop strategy all the way through and just don't push the tires. But no one is running the medium strategy that brought home the win last night. And also no one is running the medium strategy that brought home second place last night, interestingly enough. So everyone is locked into at least a 4-stop strategy, if not a 5-stop strategy here, it would appear. The Car Rebuilds is easily your leader right now. Railgun and Manuel Pedro have not been able to do anything to him. Car Matthews stays on the periphery of these four GTs. If they get into some shenanigans, Matthews could steal a podium off of them. Try to salvage some kind of result for the Ferrari entrance. Yeah, already, car rebuilds is polling by a bit more than a second to lap on Breezy Rain in 5th place right now. Again, we're expecting, oh, a little bit of hit there. Railgun broke early and Pedro got right into his rear. Looks like it didn't really compromise them too badly though. But they do continue to bleed a bit of time to rebuilds. So if Railgun and Pedro are going to spend all their time fighting, rebuilds is easily going to walk off with this win here. Oh, Pedro gets right to Railgun's left rear quarter panel. Can't make the move stick, but he got right there on him. Okay, so we're at the end of lap 8 now. If anyone feels unconfident with their tire life, they'll be pitting this time by. Does anyone elect to pit on this circuit, or is everyone going to push it out one more lap? Again, lap 9 is when you want to make your first pit stop, ideally. Car rebuild stays out, Railgun stays out, Pedro stays out, Matthews stays out. A little bit farther back, we look at the Chevy duo of Breezy and Tempered Ship. Swap for position in the final corner, but they're both going to stay out. Agent Diesel stays out, Rebirth Quint stays out. So yeah, everyone's going to go 9 laps on the tires. So while we had a lot of tire strategies going on last night, everyone, at least early on, is locked into the exact same strategy at the moment here. Car rebuilds, he is at the 43% mark on his tires. Railgun is at 42%. Manuel Pedro, 46%. Car Matthews, 47%. Breezy Rain, 46%. Tempered Ship, 47%. I'm not even going to bother looking at the rest of the field. So at first I thought that everyone was on softs, but it does not appear that everyone's on softs. I think it's more likely that everyone is running the exact same medium tire strategy right now. So if everyone's on the medium tires, then we'll likely be seeing people push out to lap 12 or 13. That number might be slightly harder to make. Not impossible, just slightly harder. Manuel Pedro has gotten by Les Railgun, though. So teammate on teammate action going on here for second and third. And Car Matthews runs close enough that if these two get into it with each other, he will be right in the position to capitalize and squeeze by here. We're going to go ahead and take a Twitch-mandated ad break and ride on board for a flying lap with Les Railgun. We'll be back momentarily here at Yas Marina. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here. Yas Marina. Car Matthews is pitting at the end of his 10th lap, so he did not push his medium tires nearly as far as he could have, but I wonder, is Cars Matthews going to try and replicate the four-stop strategy that brought home the win last night, just never push the medium tires to the point where they are heavily worn out? Looking at car rebuilds, he's at 54% right now. He still has plenty enough fuel in the tank to go for a few more laps. Manuel Pedro also has quite a bit of fuel still in the car. Would have Les Railgun. Also, they all have enough fuel to stay out for a few more laps. I imagine these drivers will be considering the normal three-stop strategy. Pit on lap 13, pit on lap 25, then pit on lap 37. And honestly, if you really wanted to, yeah, it's a nice three-stop strategy. Honestly, if you really wanted to, you could potentially shorten one of those up if you desired. 13, 25, 37, yeah, and then you could throw on, you'd have 10 laps to the end on that. And if you really, really wanted to push, if you could steal an extra lap somewhere, you could potentially throw on softs at the very end, but I don't think the benefit for doing that would be anywhere near worth it. But Car Matthews jumped off a little early, and I think Car Matthews might try the four-stop strategy, all medium tires all the way through. And the good news for Car Matthews, he is running in cleaner. He was basically running right behind the four GTs, just a little bit off of them in terms of pace. And while he will have to make an entire extra pit stop, he might not have to deal with as much tire fall off. But we'll see, because here's the thing, if the four GTs like to pit this lap, then they will be covering him off, covering that strategy off, and they will also be on that four-stop strategy. But no, it looks like Cars and Railgun will stay out, but Pedro is going to pit. So Pedro says he's had enough on these tires. 61, 62% in the rears. So now the question is going to be, where is Manuel Pedro and Cars Matthews going to be in relation to each other? Breezy Rain and Tempered Chip both pit. Aging Diesel is going to pit as well now. So Cars Matthews is still going to have a nice, clean amount of track ahead. He pitted one lap earlier than a big chunk of his field. Rebirth Quint actually stayed out another lap, though. Manuel Pedro just now going through turn one. I think he's still going to be well clear of Car Matthews here. Pedro's still in pit road there. You can see the 4GT of Manuel Pedro coming out of the pit lane exit there, but he's still just far enough ahead. No, he's going to be just behind, actually. Pedro was not the speed in time, and Matthews is briefly ahead. He's already got nice warmed-up tires, but he went wide, got a little bit jump-scared by the 4GT's presence, and Pedro goes right back by, but then leaves the corner open, slams the door on Pedro there. So some Ford versus Ferrari shenanigans for what is right now potentially poised to be the last stop, the last position in the podium. Now the interesting thing is that Pedro pitting a lap earlier will minimize the amount of time he'll be on bad tires, but he may be locked into the four-stop strategy now. Rebuilds and Railgun likely jumping on to something closer to a three-stop strategy, we think. 62%. No! That's the only interesting story, and the only interesting story in the race is gone. Oh, well, Rebuilds and Railgun will both jump into the pits this time, but that was the only interesting story in this race, and it's now over. So, yeah. So much for that. Coming into the party right now is Cars Matthew. Gonna wait just a bit, because it seems like he's not quite in the Xbox chat. He might still be in game chat at the moment, as our leaders are now coming out of pit lane. And it looks like that Dodge has elected, Rebirth Quint has pitted as well now. So Pedro going to try and rush up right alongside his teammates here. Matthews, can you hear me? Can you include your audio in the Xbox party? In the party, there will be a little box, a little checkbox that will say, include my audio. Can you hit that? Alright. Matthews, you looked like you had a fantastic run going, but you're out of the race early. What took you out? Ah, okay. That's frustrating. Do you have anything else you want to say? Well, we turn our focus back to the race here. Manuel Pedro, by virtue of stopping one lap earlier than his teammates, has now ended up ahead of both Cars Rebuilt and Les Railgun. Rebuilt and Railgun right on top of each other for second and third. So Pedro has track position, but in a slightly less ideal strategy position right now. And with the only Ferrari out of the race early on, we know that is going to be a Ford 1-2-3 finish. Even if one of these Ford GT drivers crash, they would have the sheer outright pace to run by the rest of the field without issue here. Ah, okay, gotcha. Oh, okay. Understood. I'm sorry that happened to you, mate. What else will you be racing in going forward? What other series will you race in? Portuguese? Uno momento. Em quais outras séries você vai correr? What other series will you be racing in? Em quais outras séries você vai correr? Okay. Obrigado. Thank you for dumping in. Yeah. Goodbye. Adios. I'm sorry, mate. I'm sorry. I don't speak Portuguese I don't ever speak Portuguese, honestly. I'm sorry, mate. I'm trying to use a translate. Alright, I'll let you go, mate, okay? Yeah, goodbye. Alright, well, that was our attempt at interviewing and talking with Carl Matthews, as basically nothing has really been developing on the track since. The gap that Manuel Pedro had over Car Rebuilds and Les Railgun has shrunken down over our last few laps, though. Les Railgun seems to be falling off a bit from Car Rebuilds and Manuel Pedro right now. We're likely going to see a fight for this top spot momentarily here. Again, Manuel Pedro basically on the back foot now when it comes to tire strat. He has the track position, but not for long. It does seem like Car Rebuilds, your pole sitter, has the number of all of his teammates here tonight. It may have to come down to time penalties if they want to take this win away from him. As we look at the penalty counters right now, 2 seconds for Car Rebuilds, 4.6 for Manuel Pedro, Les Railgun 1.5 seconds, Temper Chip 3.8 seconds, Breezy Rain 1.4, Agent Diesel 3 seconds, Rebirth Quint 0.9 seconds of time penalties right now. So the entire field, as small as it is, all of them have earned time penalties throughout this race here. Les Railgun, despite being the champion, Les Railgun does not seem to have the outright pace of his teammates, Rebuilds and Pedro, right now, it seems. It does seem that these two are a lot racer and a lot faster. Ooh, Car Rebuilds trying to get the switchback here, going through the not quite hairpin, washes out wide, coming onto the back straightaway, but that gives him plenty of time to get the traction down on those tires. Pedro back on the inside. Rebuilds trying to make the outside line work there in a dead heat as they go down the back straightaway. Who's going to go deeper under braking this time by? Looks like it's the 55. So Pedro holds onto the top spot for just a little longer, and Rebuilds has a bit of a bobble in the nose of the car as he goes through that chicane. But now back down the second of the two back straightaways. Pedro defends on the inside. Rebuilds goes on the outside. Ooh, Pedro slides wide, though, coming past the apex. He's vulnerable. He's got the outside line that should, in theory, give him good traction and good run down. But Rebuilds, can he cut him off in the braking zone? He can't. They're still side by side. Someone has to brake to make a little bit of contact, and Rebuilds is sideways. And Pedro goes back by. And now all of a sudden, Railgun is back here. Pedro and Rebuilds still side by side. As they go to the hotel section, they're all sorts of sideways and slamming doors on each other. And Car Rebuilds finally muscles his way by Pedro. Last corner now. Our Ford GTs, 1, 2, 3 right now. Well, we know that there's no team orders to hold back. This is a legitimate knife fight here between the Ford GT trio. It does look like Car Rebuilds is the one that has just got their number in terms of pace and racecraft, as now Manuel Pedro is under threat from Les Railgun. And Pedro completely botched the braking zone that time by, and he's all sorts of sideways coming out. Did he put on soft tires or something? No, he's got to be on the mediums. He's just missing corners, legitimately, it seems. So the entire field seems to be on roughly the same strategy. And now Les Railgun trying to force his way by Pedro here. He's got him now. Again, reminder, Pedro pit a lap earlier than these other two Ford GTs. Got him to track position, but the tire life and the overall racecraft just did not seem to be there, and he's already fallen back to third. And now Rebuilds is rushing off into the distance. Pedro trying to set himself up for a dive here, going into the braking zone. Bit of a slide. He's going to go deep. Can he make it stick? He does make it stick. And Pedro back in front of Railgun, sliding the rear of his car all over Railgun's front bumper. Railgun very nearly hits that outside wall. And while these two are fighting, Rebuilds just vanishes off into the distance. Down the start-finish straightaway again. So Pedro back in front of Railgun, but for how long? We know his tires are going to go off first, and he just doesn't seem to have quite the grip in the rear. As you can see him drifting the rear end out there through turns 3 and 4, and Railgun just goes right by virtue of having a smoother line, carrying more speed into the following braking zone. Pedro tries to go deep, tries to lunge it up back alongside, but can't make it stick. Rebuilds may have made a bit of a mistake there. He's lost some ground to this duo. So now Railgun is going to have a draft on Rebuilds. Is it going to be enough for him to try and make a dive bomb under braking for the lead of this race? Do you go for it? Railgun does not go for it. Not this time, at least. Rebuild's very wide, coming out of that chicane, and now here comes Pedro, looking to the outside of Railgun. Railgun has the draft on Rebuilds, though. And he'll use the draft to pull back ahead of Pedro, so Pedro won't be too much of an issue for him this time. 67 gets into the sixes. His rear diffuser pushes the 6 wide. And the process that backs the 67 up, and now here comes that 55 of Pedro back to the outside. Neck and neck between the two. Pedro trying to wrap around the outside, and he does it again. But Railgun says, I'm not having that. He gives Pedro a bit of a shove, knocks him offline, and Rebuilds completely missed the braking zone as well. All three of them right on top of each other, and no one can seem to figure out what to do. Well, despite not really having anything serious to fight for, all three of these drivers are really getting elbows out for honor and glory, but I do have to wonder if if they keep all racing like this, it may just come down to time penalties that will decide this race in the end. So it is Rebuilds, Pedro, and Railgun in that order. We're expecting Pedro will be paying around lap 23 to 24. Rebuilds and Railgun will be paying either lap 24 or 25. Pedro has a bit of a run. He's staying up on Rebuilds now. So Pedro's finding a bit of a second wind. Power down now, the chicane. Now down the second back straightaway once again. Rebuilds runs a defensive inside line. Pedro right there behind. And now Pedro looks to the outside, trying to set himself up for a more normal traditional line, but he gets hit from behind by Railgun. Railgun forces him wide again. That will be all it takes for Rebuilds to hold on to his position here. Has it stabilized out now? It may have finally stabilized out a bit between these drivers. Ooh, but with a big lunge like that from Pedro on Rebuilds, it's not going to help him very much. He is still, though, right behind Rebuilds as they go down first of the two back straightaways. Is Pedro going to try another lunge in the braking zone going into the chicane? Chicane's not really an ideal overtaking spot, but it can be made to work. Looks to the inside, thinks better of it, it's not going to commit to it. Not a good exit by Pedro. So Rebuilds can probably run his normal line, but no, Rebuilds is going to insist on running the defensive line again. Now he runs a little bit wide to have a more traditional entry into the corner. Pedro keeps the car about a third of a car width closer down, but that's killing his speed and killing his exit momentum in the process. So he's not really in a position to do anything back against Rebuilds here. Who did he get alongside? He tried to get alongside, but Rebuilds slammed the door the last possible second there. So what we're going to do, we're going to have to take a Twitch mandated ad break here. We're going to ride for a full lap on board with Les Railgun as he watches his teammates fight ahead of him. We'll be back momentarily at Yas Marina. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Yas Marina here. So it seems pretty obvious to me that Manuel Pedro is going to abort on the 3-stop strategy. He's going to go on the 4-stop strategy. He is paying once every 11 laps by the looks of it, while Rebuilds and Railgun are paying closer to once every 12 laps. So Pedro trying to balance tire life and speed with an extra pit stop. I don't know if Pedro is going to have the speed to make something of it, but with Railgun and Pedro having fought as long as they did, I think Rebuilds will be in a position that he'll be running in clean air for so long it won't really matter. Pedro is going to end up just alongside Agent Diesel, I think. Actually, just behind Agent Diesel. So he may actually have to fight someone who's not a 4GT for the first time today. Might be the only driver in the 4GT camp who's not going to be fighting a 4GT at any point in this running. But again, we believe that everyone except Pedro is on the 3-stop strategy. We think Pedro is swapping over to a 4-stop strategy now. And with 16 laps to go, potentially Pedro could throw on the soft tires now, burn 8 laps on the softs, pit, throw on soft tires again, and burn 8 more laps to the checkers. But he is now an entire pit stop behind, and we saw Lil Kid Suave, who can't be in the Porsche Cup Series, try this strategy last night for a podium shot. It did not work out. He did not have the speed. Might Pedro have the speed, though, especially considering he wouldn't be worried about worn-out mediums nearly as much as Rebuilds or Railgun is. I'm sorry, it's 20. I said there was 16. There's 26 laps left. Tempered Chip and Breezy Rain pit this lap, but Rebuilds and Railgun will stay out a little bit longer. Again, we know that those two are on the 3-stop strategy. Pedro clears Diesel as if Diesel is pretty much standing still, it seems. The difference in speed between the 4GTs and everyone else in Sector 3 is so incredibly huge. I know the 4GT drivers are like, oh, the Chevys will be really good here, but it is very obvious that, no, they are not very good here whatsoever. Granted, their best driver did not show up for tonight's race, but those Chevys have nothing compared to what those 4GTs have tonight. Nobody has anything for those 4GTs except for Cars Matthew, and he has already dropped out of the event, sadly. So Pedro runs 41 seconds behind the duo of Rebuilt and Railgun right now. We are expecting Rebuilt and Railgun to pit not this lap, but the lap after this one. We're going to be dealing with a little bit more tire fall off here near the very end. But again, we believe that Pedro is on the 4-stop on the 4-stop strategy, and Rebuilt and Railgun on the 3-stop. So Pedro's 3rd stop would be on lap 33. And then Rebuilds and Railgun's final stop would be on lap 36 or 37. And after he makes his 3rd stop, Pedro can probably throw on the soft tires, go really aggressively for about 8 laps, then pit again around lap 39 or so. 39-40. Throw on another set of soft tires and go aggressive to the end again. But I don't think that Pedro has the speed to outrun an entire pit stop, when a pit stop basically puts you 40 seconds behind. Railgun not keeping any time up with Rebuilds, though. And we look at the time penalties. Rebuilds does have more penalties than Railgun, but not so much that Railgun can just let the race win come to him. And Pedro with nearly 10 seconds of time penalties. Teammates Tempered Chip and Breezy Rain have also been going at it, but if it's a fight for 5th and 6th, then there's not really a lot on the line, not even a podium on the line. They're just kind of having a wacky little Sunday drive between the two of them. Rebirth Quint has actually ended up ahead of this duo right now. He's on some very worn-out tires right now, but Quint is doing a good job bringing everything through. He might be able to bring that Sakura Dodge to a 4th place result, depending on how the end of this race goes. We'll quickly look at the tire life of our lead duo. 66% on the rear tires for Rebuilds here. For Railgun, who is in second, he is at 65, almost only now at 66%. You can see the gap rapidly closing down, but not enough for Railgun to seriously have a shot at Rebuilds here. It does seem like Railgun's a little bit better at managing his tires, but Rebuilds has the speed, and he's able to utilize that speed to open up the gap. And while the gap closes down, it's only closing in the final sector on the last lap before they pit. That's just not enough for Railgun to really do anything with. Okay, so now the question is, where is Manuel Pedro going to be in relation to this duo? Because again, Manuel Pedro still has 2 more stops to make. Rebuilds and Railgun only have 1 more. So Pedro needs to be well clear of his 4 GT teammates here. That is not looking likely. He's just now coming through the final corner, and Rebuilds and Railgun are already on the pit lane exit road, going under turn number 1 and coming up to turn 2. There's Pedro on the outside. Oh my goodness, is Pedro going to get back ahead of him again? He is. Not only is he going to be a little bit ahead of him, he's going to be well ahead of them. So Pedro, trying to make the 4-stop strategy work, is back to having a massive gap between himself and his 4 GT teammate. Rebirth Quint has also gone ahead and pitted this lap as well. Unsurprisingly, Car Rebuilds ended up right ahead of Les Railgun. The gap, if anything, seems to have opened up a little bit more now. So after Payne, Rebirth Quint falls to last here. It doesn't seem like Railgun really has anything for Car Rebuilds. I don't think with all the time penalties that Rebuilds is going to be under threat from Pedro. So while Rebuilds is not leading right now, he is leading on the main strategy, and I don't think that Pedro has anything to really fight against him with. So we're going to do something a little bit different. We've already ran with our champion twice today, but as we're coming up on another Twitch-mandated ad break, we're going to go ahead and spend a lap with Breezy Rain, who is going to leave tonight's race and end this season 3rd in the Drivers' Championship, 2nd highest of all the Chevys in the season points. And we're going to ride on board Breezy Rain and see what a flying lap looks like on board with one of the Chevrolets here at Yas Marina. As he watches his teammate Temper chip ahead of him, we'll be back momentarily at Yas. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here, Yas Marina. We're a little bit past the halfway point of tonight's race. A small field, which is made even smaller with the DNF of cars. Matthews, we know it is going to be a Ford GT 1-2-3 finish. The question is, what order are they all going to be in? Manuel Pedro on a alt strategy. We believe he's running the 4-stop strategy. He is leading right now. Car Rebuilds runs in second. Les Railgun is in third. Rebuilds and Railgun, we believe, are on the 3-stop. Pedro on the 4-stop. Farther back, Temper Ship and Breezy Rain are having a low-stakes stalking battle for 4th and 5th spot. Agent Diesel is likely going to come home around the 6th position, and Rebirth Quint likely going to come home around the 7th position tonight. So the question, of course, is going to be how long will it take for Rebuilds and Railgun to catch Pedro again? And when Pedro pits, he can throw on the soft tires and start chasing lap times and be running a bunch of laps in clean air. I do not believe that Pedro is going to have to worry about catching Tempered Ship or Breezy Rain, at least not for a little bit here. But can he outrun what is basically a 40-second long pit stop? I've not seen the speed in that car to suggest that he'll have the ability to do that, but he is trying something different. And in a race that has no stories left whatsoever, we desperately need Pedro to at least try something here. Because there is nothing else going on in this race right now. As our GT3 season for the X League is wrapping up, and the Ford GTs, when this race is over, they will have won 8 out of 12 races over the season. Despite that, they didn't even take the lead in the Manufacturers' Championship until the end of the last race at Watkins Glen. So Chevy had put up some great defensive runs despite having no race wins over the entire season. And Mays, sadly he wasn't able to be here today, but Mays also had kept on a decent, although it was outside, a decent fight in the Drivers' Championship for a long time as well. Despite the fact that it's very obvious that while the Chevy has respectable one-lap pace, it does not have the ability to save the tires or handle the corners like the Ford GT does. So yeah, we're expecting Pedro to pit on lap 33, so he would come out with 14 laps left. If he ran a pair of stints on 7 laps on the softer tires, he'd have to worry about basically no tire fall off on the softer rubber compound. Our ticker does not seem to like having Pedro in the lead, because every time Pedro's in the lead, the gap between first and second just zeroes out, even though it is very obviously more than 0 seconds. But we are watching as Rebuilds continues to slowly close down on Pedro. And down the back straightaway they go once more. Into the final chicane. Back out. I said it's final chicane, I meant the backstretch chicane. Although realistically it is the only actual chicane here. Rebuilds has just about caught Pedro. But Pedro only has to stay out here for another 4 laps or so. So how long is Pedro going to be able to hold up Rebuilds on tires that are going to be about 3 to 4 laps older? And will have been bringing Railgun back into the mix again. Out of the final corner and down the front straightaway again. 18 laps to go here. Again, Pedro only has to stay out here for another 4 more laps. And if he really wants to abandon the mediums early, he could jump onto the softs and try to run 8 laps on the softs, but I wouldn't recommend that because then you'd still be dealing with the massive tire fall off. I think it would be better to run the 4 more laps here and just have a run on 7 laps and a run on 7 laps on the soft tires. Tempered chip and breezy rain run about 31 to 33 seconds out from this group. Pedro will likely end up behind that duo when he pits, but they should be pitting about 2 to 3 laps afterwards anyway. So they should be out of his way shortly afterwards. And then after that, Pedro should be in clean air for basically the rest of the race. Pedro defending the inside, not as aggressively as what Carr had did earlier though, and Rebuilds is going to try and take advantage of that. He's looking, pressuring to the inside, and forces Pedro to take a suboptimal line. But the power comes down, and Pedro, despite sliding the rear tires out, stays just ahead for a little bit longer. Does not seem like Railgun is able to do anything to this duo. Even though Rebuilds has caught Pedro, they are not fighting super aggressively at the moment, and Railgun is not closing with any speed. A little bit of contact there, and it looks like Pedro may have gotten a bit high-sided on the curves, and Rebuilds puts the door to him, goes deep. And he'll power through without issue here. Pedro trying to put the power down and make something happen. Here they are, side by side, down the first of the 2 back straightaways, this time by Pedro on the inside, Rebuilds on the outside. Who goes deeper under braking? Rebuilds has Pedro squeezed right against the inside here. Then Rebuilds goes wide to have a more ideal line, and Pedro puts the car right in front of Rebuilds, holds him up. That alone costs him about 2/3 of a second, if not more. And all of a sudden, Railgun is closing back in on this Ford GT duo once again. Now Rebuilds looks to the outside, down this big sweeper. Pedro, the car slides out from under him. It's very obvious to me that Pedro, while he doesn't even have the pace, he also just does not have the level of racecraft that Car Rebuilds does. Rebuilds is such a better put-together driver, and Pedro just seems to be constantly getting outsmart by Rebuilds here on the track. All right, under the hotel section once again. And already Rebuilds has disposed of Pedro. Already about a second ahead. Has Pedro damaged his engine or something? Because that is a massive amount of fall off in just one sector. No, although he is almost out of fuel. So he's going to have to pit at the end of this lap here. At the end of lap 32. They'll have 15 laps left in the event. And now Railgun goes by Pedro with no issue. Does Pedro actually have the fuel to make it back to the pits? Pedro might not make it back to pit lane here. If he makes it back to pit lane, it's going to be close. Wait, what happened to car rebuilds? What the devil happened to car rebuilds? Have I missed something? Rebuilds has gone off track. And that car is destroyed. It's horrendously damaged in the runoff in the runoff in the backstretch chicanes, and car rebuilds has had an accident. I thought I heard something, but I thought it was just the game having an issue. But car rebuilds, the dominant driver today, the fastest driver today, has had a catastrophic accident. And he is now limping at a very, very slow speed. Is this going to bring out the yellow flag? As Les Railgun has now inherited the race lead, I see the pace car moving down the start-finish straightaway. Is this a yellow flag? Manuel Pedro jumps into the pits now, as expected. And yes, we have a caution. As the fastest driver of the day, car rebuilds, has an accident. This might actually work out very well for Les Railgun, because he's going to be able to make his stop, if he chooses to stop, he can make his stop a lap later than what Pedro and Rebuilds did. And if we're going to go soft to the end, he'll be in a fine position, because he will have to put a little bit less wear on the tires. And depending on how long this yellow flag lasts, maybe you decide to pit just as the pace car's coming in and throw on the medium tires. Maybe. Because it's 15 laps to go right now. If we go green at the end of lap 35, that would be 12 laps to go when we go green. You could pit then, throw on the mediums. You'd be good to the end. Well, our race has been tipped on its head, and while we know the Ford GTs have the sheer pace to, by default, finish in the podium positions, the ordering, once again, is going to be all shaken up. So while we're under the yellow flag, we're going to take a Twitch-mandated ad break, and when we come back, hopefully we'll catch the field going to the green flag here. This is going to be a long yellow with how spread out the field is. We'll be back shortly. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to Yas Marina. We are still under the yellow flag after the dominant car of the day, Car Rebuilds, had an absolutely car-destroying crash a few laps ago. Now, while we were away, Les Railgun, Breezy Rain, Tempered Chip, and Asian Diesel all decided to make a pit stop, so that gave the lead back to Manuel Pedro. Rebirth Quint has not yet made a stop. We think Quint might still go for only one more pit stop. That would just be to throw on another set of medium tires, likely at the end of this lap or the lap after this. We are still waiting on car rebuilds to catch up to the rear of the grid here. Again, every time that Pedro's in the lead, our ticker seems to have an issue and kind of collapse on itself. So word is we're going to be going green flag this time by, even though car rebuilds has not yet caught the rear of the grid. But it looks like we're going to be going green this time by, with or without car rebuilds. So rebuilds is going to be on tires that, while they will be nice and warm, they'll already have quite a bit of wear on them. And he has to fight his way through the grid. Now, we know it's going to be a Ford GT 1, 2, 3 finish. The other drivers and the other cars just do not have anything for the Fords, but the ordering is going to be really weird. Pedro has track position. Railgun has tires. Rebuilds has speed. And if these drivers threw on the soft tires, they'll all be good to the end. But if they threw on the medium tires, it's not going to be looking great, but they might be able to limp it home without another pit stop. Honestly, with what? It would be 12 laps, it would be 13 laps to go as the pace car comes in. I might consider pitting with the pace car and throw on the medium tires as the rest of the field goes green. And it looks like that's what Rebirth Quint is going to do. Rebirth Quint's going to pull off circuit into the pit lane there. So Rebirth Quint is going to get onto an ultra strategy, probably throw on the mediums and not make another pit stop. But our other 6 drivers are all on top of each other. We are underway, green flag with 13 laps to go here at Yas Marina. Pedro now has Railgun right behind him. Immediately, car rebuilds gain alongside there. Car rebuilds has already cleared 2 cars, yes, in a single quarter. Again, anyone who's not in a Ford GT is just absolutely cooked. I think the balancing has been just awful these last 4 weeks, and it's really showing now. There's just nothing that these cars can do against the Ford GT here. Breezy Rain, for a brief moment, is in the podium position. I think the only time we've had a Chevy in the podium spots thus far today. Pedro trying to outrun Les Railgun, but Les Railgun has tires that are 1 lap fresher. But if they're on softs, they will have to pit again. And if they're on mediums, well, it's going to be a very, very bad time for them to the end here. Rebirth Quint, we believe, has thrown on the medium tires and is electing on making no more stops to the end of this race. Railgun already right on top of Manuel Pedro as they go down the second of the back straightaways now. Car rebuild's dealing with just a little bit of hiccup, it seems, down the straightaways. In Sector 3, this is where he'll likely be able to just pull away from the Aston. If not for the fact that Asian Diesel really keeps him pinched down and now traps him on the unideal outside line, squeezes him nearly off circuit. A big twitch by Rebuilds as he is struggling with traffic. A lot more struggles. This is the first time for the fastest driver all day long. He's been in clean air, not really had to fight with anyone too much, but now he actually has to fight, and he is showing some weakness. So officially, he's only made 1 overtake that is stuck over the first lap after the restart. Now it is 12 laps to go to the end of this race. And Diesel has just about caught Breezy Rain here. Pedro still holding a respectable gap over Railgun. The focus really is on this fight for 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Rain has top speed. Asian Diesel has kind of a decent speed. Rebuilds has the lowest amount of speed, but the handling is going to massively favor Rebuilds, and the outright driver ability and pace will favor Rebuilds as well. out of the chicane. Are they going to be 3 wide? Well, they're trying to make it 3 wide, going down the second back straightaway here. Diesel, Breezy Rain, side by side for 3rd position. Rebuilds runs in 5th. He just wants these two to run themselves off the circuit so he can go by, and that's exactly what happens. There are 3 wide in the apex of the corner, and Car Rebuilds disposes of both of them easily. Now, Diesel has a good run out, but Car Rebuilds extends the track. He knows that the 4GTs are just so much faster than everything else. Time penalties aren't really going to matter. We saw, oh wow, big hit from behind there. We saw last night our race winner had 12 seconds of time penalties and still won by 40 seconds overall. When you are just that much faster than everyone else, you can afford to just run wide, eat the time penalties, and just outrun the rest of the field. And now Car Rebuilds has disposed of Diesel, disposed of Breezy Rain, and we are back to 4 GTs running 1, 2, and 3. But it is Manuel Pedro who leads over Les Railgun right now. And now we look at the penalties thus far. For Pedro, this is not looking good. Over 12 and a half seconds of time penalties at this stage of the race. So even if Pedro was on a better strategy earlier, that's done for now with that much penalty. Les Railgun, 3.4 seconds of penalties only, and Car Rebuilds has now over 5 seconds, and Railgun has a significant amount of track position advantage over Rebuilds, and he has a little bit of tire life advantage as well. Real quick, let's look at the tire life of our top 3 drivers right now. Pedro, 31% on the rears. Les Railgun's tires are at 17% right now, and then Car Rebuilds, he is at 23%. So a gigantic swing in difference in tire life. And all drivers have at least 2.8 seconds of time penalties at this stage of the event as well. As we'll see our top 6 run through out of the hotel section here. So Les Railgun with a massively superior tire life to Manuel Pedro is not running him down. And I have to wonder, did Railgun throw on the medium tires? Is he going to try and make the medium tires last what would basically be 14 laps? Granted, one of those laps were under the yellow flag, so that would help him out a little bit. He has a massive amount of track position right now. The only other driver on a similar strategy is Rebirth Quint, who pitted just as the pace car came in. And he's got obviously a massive amount of track position over Rebirth Quint. So it's not like Quint's in a position to do anything to him. So if Pedro and Rebuilds are both going to have to pit again before this race is over. Pedro's at 28% tire life right now. Les Railgun is at 24%. And Pedro, who is out in front trying to run away, he is at 42%. He'll have to pit sooner rather than later here. So it's both Railgun and Rebuilds on just a medium tire stretch, just throwing on medium tires and trying to limp the set of mediums to the end here. If that, in that scenario, Railgun should be in a better position. And with all the time penalties that Pedro has racked up, it's not going to matter. So yeah, even though I think that it's a suboptimal strategy, Railgun and Rebuilds are going to win this race and likely finish 1-2 in that order. Just because the only other driver who could match them on pace, Pedro, is compromise themselves with penalties, and every other car in the field just does not have the pace to keep up. Yeah, Diesel is obviously on the soft tire, so he'll have to pit. And then you got Breezy Rain, who's running in 5th right now. He might be on mediums, but it's not going to matter. He might be on hards, actually. If Breezy Rain's on hards, that would be interesting. To be fair, you wouldn't have to deal with any tire fall, but that also just means he'll have no pace whatsoever. But I guess Breezy Rain is trying something else to try and do something against the 4 GTs at the front. But honestly, Pedro, we know, is going to have to pit sooner rather than later. Les Railgun will inherit the race lead. And then it will just be a matter of Railgun and Rebuilds need to manage their tires to the checkers here. Will they be able to do that? Honestly, I don't think they're going to be under any serious threat from anyone else. It's going to be rough. I could imagine Rebuilds being in the 75 to 78% wear range at the end of this. But if he's on the medium tires like we believe, he'll be able to make it work. It's going to be painful, but he will be able to make it work here. When the leaders hit the start-finish line, it will be 8 laps to go for Manuel Pedro. You might want to consider pitting either at the end of this lap or the end of next lap. End of this lap's probably a better option. Breezy Rains just got by Agent Diesel, apparently. Oh, Diesel's had an accident, has backed the car into the wall somewhere. No movement from the pace car, though. As Diesel continues to run, he'll likely pit this time by and just throw on some softs here. But that derails any good run that Diesel was having, and will put him behind Rebirth Quint likely to the end of this race. Real quick, just looking at the tires once again. Breezy Rain, 24% right now. Car Rebuilds in 3rd spot, 39%. And if Breezy Rain is on the hard tires and Rebuilds is on mediums with a little bit extra wear, because again, it's not like Rebuilds pitted and then just ran a bunch of laps at slow pace speed. He had to go full bore to try and catch the rear of the grid for about another lap and a half almost. So for car Rebuilds, these tires have a lot of life already put on them. Breezy Rain, if he's on the hard tires, he's not going to have to worry about fall off whatsoever. I don't think Breezy Rain will catch Rebuilds. Not on track, at least. But if the fall off for Rebuilds is bad enough, time penalties might derail a potential podium run for him. And obviously, there is the question of Manuel Pedro. He's likely going to be pitting at the end of this lap. How far down the grid is he going to fall after making his pit stop? Rebirth Quint is in 6th position. He will not have to pit again, but the Dodge has had basically negative pace today, has been completely irrelevant over the course of the event. And there's Pedro coming into the pits now. So that will hand the lead of the race back over to Les Railgun. So here goes Breezy Rain by. And it looks like Tempered Ship's going to clear Pedro as well. But again, Pedro's going to have massive tire advantage. Pedro can throw on the softs to the end here. Breezy Rain, we believe, is on hard tires on a car that's not very fast anyway. It's about 7 laps to go, but that gap's going to be big. It's going to be about 10 seconds or so between Rain and Pedro. And again, the other thing is that Pedro has a huge amount of time penalty left to outrun. So it may not be the strategy that will derail Pedro as much as it will be the time penalties. The time penalties might derail Pedro's run and might deny Ford a chance at sweeping the podium results. Breezy Rain, who's going to leave this season 3rd in driver's points, is also in position to maybe take home a 3rd place in this race. But we'll have to keep an eye between Breezy Rain and Manuel Pedro as this race comes down to its end here. Car Rebuilds is not seriously closing on Railgun, So Railgun might still be able to pull off this win. Interesting way to cap off his championship season here. And Car Rebuilds, the fastest driver tonight, got the pole, led a huge chunk of laps, but had some sort of malfunction, a massive accident at the end of the first of the two back straightaways, brought out the yellow flag. He's recovered to second, but he is now behind on both track position, penalties, and strategy. So Pedro is actually about 14 seconds out from Breezy Rain, apparently. He's 10 seconds out from Tempered Ship. No damage on the car. He just seems to be abnormally slow right now. Slow getting up to pace. And with 6 laps left, he has 6 laps to make up. It's basically 13 seconds on Breezy Rain. And that's not counting... Oh, and Rebirth Quint's pitting now also. So Quint's done with this strategy. He's going to do something else now. So yeah, I think Pedro's out of contention for the podium now. Still 13 seconds behind Breezy Rain and not closing with any serious speed. The gap between Car Rebuilds and Breezy Rain for second is just absolutely massive, so there's no sign of that closing down either. Alright, well, we're going to go ahead, and we've ridden on board with the Railgun a bit. Let's go ahead and ride on board with Car Rebuilds here, our pole sitter tonight. As we're coming down to the closing laps here at Yas Marina, we'll spin a lap on board with Car Rebuilds and give you an idea what a flying lap has looked like on board the fastest driver all night tonight here at Yas Marina. We'll be back shortly for the sprint to the end here. What in the devil? No, we're not going anywhere. What is this? So Rebuilds has cooked his tires. Rebuilds' tires are cooked. He doesn't have any more life in them. So Rebuilds, I guess, was on the softs, and I misjudged, but Rebuilds has cooked his tires too much. Now he's had to make another stop. So Breezy Rain, ever so briefly, is going to end up in second position now. And Tempered Ship is following him. Where's Manuel Pedro going to be in relation to Rebuilds? Oh, Pedro's going to be by Rebuilds as well. So with 5 laps left, so no, we're not going to take an ad break. We're going to follow this race to the end because now things have gotten interesting again. Of course, now that things have gotten interesting again, our tickers have completely imploded and are completely useless now. Looking at penalties, still over 12 seconds for Manuel Pedro. Tempered Ship has 7.3 seconds of time penalties. Car Rebuilds has 7.6 seconds of time penalties at this stage of the race as well. And all of a sudden, Chevys are running second and third on track again. Now, it's not going to be enough for Chevy to get back on top in the Manufacturers Championship. The Fords basically won the Manufacturers Championship by default because they showed up in numbers, but the Chevys are doing what they've done so many times this season, and while they've not had the outright pace, they seem to make something work on strategy alterations and pull out good results. Because even though Pedro likely has this pace to catch Rain and Tempered Ship, he's going to have to deal with his own time penalties. Pedro now at 13 seconds, nearly 14 seconds of time penalties. Tempered Ship has not yet hit 40% on the tire life here, and Breezy Rain, the other Chevy, has only just now hit 40% in the tire life. So they are on the hards, we believe. This is Les Railgun, who we believe is on medium tires, limping around at the head of the field, but he has a gigantic gap on second and third. As long as Railgun doesn't wreck the car, won't matter. He's got this race basically in the bag. but it's poised to be a very unexpected podium roundout. We thought it would be a Ford GT 1-2-3 lockout, but that does not seem to be the case. The Chevys showing some resilience in the last moments. Although Manuel Pedro is going to make it hard for them, he is running down Breezy Rain and Tempered Chip with speed now. But he's going to have to outrun a huge chunk of time penalties. He'll have to be 6.5 seconds ahead of Tempered Chip to steal third from him. He'll have to be something like 8 seconds, closer to 9 seconds ahead of Breezy Rain to steal second from Breezy. And it's not like Pedro's tires are going to be absolutely fine. He is cooking them really quickly here. He will be dealing with some fall off as this continues. So the fight is for second, third, and fourth now. What can Pedro do in these closing laps? Can he re-secure a podium result? Car rebuilds even farther behind this group. The fastest man all night tonight, likely not even going to touch the podium spots, as Car Rebuilds has way more penalties than both Tempered Chip and Breezy Rain right now. It's actually turned into that Les Railgun, your race leader, has the least amount of time penalties of everyone on track, and that's still 3.4 seconds, still a massive amount. But that gap has closed down. Pedro has caught Tempered Chip. Is 3 laps left in the event. Again, we know he should be able to get by without too much issue. The difference between the soft tires and the hard tires are just massive. But he has to outrun a time penalty all the while. Clears Tempered Chip without issue there. Although Tempered Chip does have a slight horsepower advantage, it can keep Pedro, or keep right on top of Pedro for a little bit longer here in Sector 2, I imagine. Pedro can now see up ahead at Breezy Rain in the second spot on track. Railgun still more than a full straightaway ahead, a second spot. Looks like Pedro's already disposed of Tempered Chip. But he needs to be 6 seconds ahead of Tempered Chip. Well, actually a little bit more than 6 seconds, closer to 7 seconds ahead, about 6.5 seconds ahead of Tempered Chip to actually take third place from that Chevy driver. Two laps to go as Les Railgun crossed the line there. Pedro now being actively held up here by Breezy Rain. So he's going to go onto an alternate line, try to make it side by side with Breezy Rain. As they go down the start-finish straight, can he wrap it around the outside here? No, he ends up running right into the rear of that number 17. Hey, this helps out Tempered Chip a little bit more. It holds up the Ford GT and makes it slightly more likely that Tempered Chip could still secure a third place result. Now Pedro comes alongside the Chevy. They're coming down into the braking zone here. Just not quite hairpin. Now Breezy Rain will have a decent run out, I imagine, and can use the draft and speed to get right back on to Pedro here. But I don't think Breezy Rain is going to be able to fight back against Pedro. So Pedro's definitely going to be the second car across the line. Of that, there's no doubt. But is he going to be fast enough to outrun his time penalty against Tempered Chip? He's not. I don't see any way that he outruns Breezy Rain, but he might still be able to snag a podium over Tempered Chip here. Real quickly, as our leader is coming down to prepare to take the white flag, a look at his tires. He is at 69. He's going to be at 70% tires. But thankfully, he has opened up a gigantic gap on the rest of the field So he can afford to just limp the car home on these cooked out rear tires. As long as he doesn't stress it, as long as he doesn't spin out or crash, he will be fine to the end here. 70% as he crosses the line though. And our tickers are still completely busted, it seems. Completely useless. Pedro might be able to outrun Tempered Ship, the penalties against Tempered Ship, but I don't think he's going to be able to outrun Breezy Rain. So Les Railgun qualified second, but is poised to take home a fantastic win here. Even though his gap over Pedro is rapidly shrinking, there's just not enough time for Pedro to actually do anything about it. Yeah, the gap that Railgun had over second is now only about half of what it was a lap ago. 74%. He's only down to 2%. Is he going to have the fuel to make it to the end? Is Railgun going to have the fuel to make it to the checkers? Oh, I think he's backing off to try and save fuel. I think that's the big thing. He's not worried about the tires. I think he's worried about his fuel right now. That's likely why he's backing off so much and is going so much slower now. He wants to just verify that he can power it across the line. Well, now there's only 2 corners left. He should have the fuel to make it to the end this time by. So Les Railgun, your series champion, will come down out of the final corner. Checkered flag with wave, and your champion will cap off the season with a victory here at Yas Marina. Fantastic job by Railgun. Manuel Pedro will be the second car to cross the line, but will that be enough for him to secure a podium? Because he has to fight against Breezy Rain and Tempered Ship still. And as those 2 Chevrolets cross the line, do either of them nip Pedro? Breezy Rain does, but Tempered Ship does not. So Breezy Rain will come home with a second. Pedro will be third. Tempered Ship will be fourth. And Cars Rebuilt will be fifth. After dominating so much of the race, but self-inflicted error takes him out of it. Agent Diesel, limping around, will come home in 6th. And then the Dodge of Rebirth Quint will be 7th. We're going to take a Twitch-mandated ad break, and when we come back, we'll try to talk with some of our top finishers here about their runs tonight at Yas Marina. Breezy, can you hear me?
Yo.
Yo, awesome. Can you include your audio in the party?
Yeah, it is.
All right. Monaco, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm sharing my audio.
It says my audio is.
All right. I'll get to you in a bit, Monaco, because I do want to interview you for a whole end of season thing here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we want to welcome you back here to Yas Marina. Not only is our race over, our season is over. Your champion, Les Railgun, has also wrapped up the win at the end of the season as well. But I want to talk with somebody else. Breezy Rain comes home with a podium, and with that, he will actually steal third place in driver's points as well with that run. So Breezy Rain, fantastic drive out there. What do you have to say about your run today?
Thankfully there's a safety car. That was a pretty uneventful race till that. That brought us close enough for me to get P2.
I do want to ask, were you on the hard compound tires at the end there?
Yeah. It was so bad.
I mean, if it works, it works.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you did have a great run out there, Breezy. Best showing for you thus far this season, I believe. I do want to go ahead and ask, what other things will we likely see you in over the next few weeks and months on Forza?
IMSA Championship and Aero, doing that.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. All right. Well, for those of you who follow Arrow, you can definitely see Breezy Rain there. In that case, anything else you want to say before we wrap up? Not just the interview, but your season overall.
Fuck Ford.
All right. Well, pretty straightforward there. Pretty straightforward there from our second place finisher and our highest non-Ford finisher today. Thanks again for talking with us. And now I want to turn the mic over to XR Monaco. Monaco, the season for not just the Porsche Cup, but also for the GT3 Championship has come to a close. It is over. What do you have to say now that the seasons have ended?
Yeah, it's been really fun. This was our third season, so a lot of work went into it, a lot of building and development here. So the guys put up with a lot of bugs and working through issues. So it's great to see the camaraderie. It's great to see people still showing up 12 weeks in. And our next season is going to be a little shorter. It'll be 10 weeks, and we'll have our draft going on for a 1 week off week coming up. So more info on that. But yeah, no, it's been great. And just really proud of the teams and managers. I know this is like a different setup from a lot of different leagues, so it's cool to see people mesh with it right away and kind of just fall in love with being on a team. So yeah, great to see.
All right. I do want to ask, are you guys going to be running a Porsche Cup again for the support series, or are you maybe going to jump to something else like a Ferrari Challenge or a Lamborghini Super Trofeo series or something else?
Yeah, we'll have more info on that soon. But it could be really anything.
All right, we'll be keeping an eye. Well, you say really could be anything. So, all right, we'll cross our fingers. Maybe we'll get a Renault Clio Cup for the support series or something zany like that. In that
Yeah,
case.
maybe.
All right. Thanks for talking with us, Monaco. We seem to be having some issues with Railgun. He does want an interview, but it seems like Xbox is treating him kind of cruelly right now. 1 second.
Looks like he disconnected. Imagine a
Yeah.
Mazda Cosmo Championship.
You may be able to remove him insane and invite him back. I might fix it.
Bruh, does Breezy hate us that much? I heard that through the stream. I'm just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, Railgun says he was not in the party on his end, which is absolutely hilarious. 1 second, I'm going to try this again. Railgun, did you come back in now? Oh yeah, Railgun's coming back in now. Just a moment here.
You got
He
half a
just needs
board
to
here.
switch from game to party chat.
Wait, is he in game chat right now?
Oh, well, we lost him.
Oh. You lost both of them. Manuel, are you still here?
Yeah.
Damn. Oh, you're muted. Can you click that
Yeah,
button?
Pedro, do you want to give an interview real quickly?
Oh, hey, rebuilds.
All right, here I are. Is it gonna work for Railgun? Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, well, that was Pedro. Railgun, can you hear us? All right, awesome. Okay, Railgun, make sure your audio is included. You are the champion. Your team has won the championship, and you won the last race of the season. What do you have to say about your run out there today to wrap up the season?
It was rough. This last race, the car was so slidey. It was so weird to drive, but
Wow. Okay, Xbox. I see
Uh,
how it is. That's a cruel way to treat the champion. Xbox just kicked him from the party.
that might be just Yas Marina at night at this point, because that's exactly how I felt about the Porsche yesterday.
That's just how Yas Marina is in this game. Yas Marina is a very low grip circuit at night. At daytime, it's a very high grip circuit, and at night, it's a very, very low grip.
Sim, sim.
Okay.
I entered the chat so I can translate to Manuel.
All right. Pedro, great job on the podium, but how did you get so many penalties today?
Ele tá perguntando, ele falou parabéns
Muitas
pelo
penalidades,
pódio,
ele perguntou.
mas por que você tomou tanto?
Hum, não treinei, como é que fala?
He didn't train for the race?
I am not have one good pace.
He doesn't have a good pace. Yeah.
A estratégia foi boa, my strategy is good.
The strategy was good.
Na medida do possível.
Yeah. Eu não sei
All right.
traduzir.
Your team took home. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Mas a pista tava com as condições muito ruins, muito estranhas. O carro não tinha grip ideal, escorregava muito, mesmo com já emborrachada.
The grip from the circuit was not optimal. We were sliding a lot, even in the end of the race.
Pedro, I do want to ask, this season is over. What other Forza things are we going to see you in the future?
Ele falou, a temporada tá acabando, mas o que você vai fazer dentro do Forza depois dessa temporada?
Sinceramente, vou esperar a próxima temporada do X-League para correr somente ela no Motorsport e alguns outros campos, mas não muito.
Here on Forza Motorsport, he's gonna wait for the start of the other season of X League, but on Forza Motorsport, he's not gonna race so much.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks for jumping in and talking with us, Pedro. And good job on the podium again.
Ele agradeceu por entrar e falar com eles e muito bom trabalho.
Oh yeah, thanks.
All right,
Yeah,
and
thanks,
with a
guys.
little bit of translation help, that was the word from Manuel Pedro. We're going to try one more time to reach out to Les Railgun, but if it crashes on us again, we're not going to do it again. It seems like Xbox has a bit of an issue with the X League GT3 champion. Railgun, can you hear us? Yes, I hear you. Let's try this again, and hopefully Xbox won't kick you this time.
yeah. Did you guys hear anything I said?
We heard some
You
of
got
it,
like
but then
two
you just
words
left.
in, and then you got 2 words in, and then Xbox kicked you. So
Oh.
just restart, I guess.
Yeah, what I was saying is that this last race was kind of rough. the car was sliding a lot. It was not. It wasn't kind of not natural, but we managed to pull it off. Pull the victory, and yeah, I am looking forward for the next season. No, wait, kick me
I
again. Oh, okay. You answered.
Nope, you're still here. You're
Yeah.
still here. I do want to ask, what other stuff will we likely see you in Forza over the next few weeks and months?
You mean like other events?
Yeah, other events. Are you going to be in stuff that's outside of X League, or are you going to just focus on X League only?
Maybe Team Wars on H6.
I mean, Le Mans is about to start up for Toro if you're interested in
Yeah.
that.
I don't really know. I'm still deciding. I'm still deciding if I'm going to Proto or GT in there.
Their proto team already has a decent amount of people, according to Wick, as far as I'm aware. I don't know if
Yeah.
anyone's for GT.
Yeah, but
Well,
we'll see. We'll see in the
anything-
coming months. Yeah.
Well, as you are the champion, Railgun, is there anything else you want to say in general about your season as a whole before we go ahead and put a bow tie on this?
I guess it's just that I don't know. It was fun. It was really fun. It was fun to drive here. Yeah.
All right. Railgun, thanks for jumping in and talking with us. Great job on the champion. Great job on the team championship. Great job on the race win as well. And one more thing as well, Ford has won 8 of the 12 races in the GT3 championship this season. So while the points fight came down to it near the last 2 races, it was a pretty outstanding demonstration by the Ford team. With that in mind, I'll pretty much wrap up our broadcast here for Yas Marina and this season as a whole. It will be a little bit of a break on this channel until we see you for another Forza event, but we will be back sooner rather than later. I do want to say thank you everyone for joining. Farewell everyone, and until next time, goodbye.
4 champions for a week. Bye.